wanders sometimes, but not for as long. Just keep practicing what you learned in stage 2, and mind wandering will eventually stop completely. The main goal for this stage is to overcome forgetting. To do this, you'll use the techniques of following the breath and connecting to actively engage with the meditation object and extend periods of uninterrupted attention, and you'll cultivate introspective awareness through the practices of labeling and checking in. These techniques allow you to catch distractions before they lead to forgetting. You will also learn to deal with the pain and drowsiness that often arise at this stage. You have mastered stage 3 when you no longer forget the breath. This is also the first milestone achievement, continuous attention to the meditation object. How forgetting happens. Our field of conscious awareness contains much more than just the meditation object. It also includes an awareness of bodily sensations and things in our surroundings, as well as a constant stream of thoughts and feelings. Any of these is a potential distraction, but an actual distraction is one that competes with the meditation object for your attention. When attention alternates between the breath and a sound, thought, feeling, or bodily sensation, flickering even briefly between the two, it's a distraction. There are typically several such distractions in your field of conscious awareness at any one time. You might not notice these movements of attention because they're so rapid. Nevertheless, this alternating attention creates a scattering of attention to distractions. These are the distractions that potentially cause forgetting. There are two distinct types of distractions, subtle and gross. The difference between the two is the amount of time attention is on the distraction versus the breath. When less time is spent on the distraction and the meditation object remains the primary focus of attention, it's called a subtle distraction. These subtle distractions, along with peripheral awareness, are what make up the background of conscious experience. However, if one of these distractions takes center stage, occupying your attention for most of the time and causing the meditation object to slip into the background, it becomes a gross distraction. As you follow the breath, attention alternates between the breath and a constantly changing variety of subtle distractions in the background. Sooner or later, a subtle distraction comes along that's engaging enough to displace the meditation object as your primary focus of attention. At that moment, the subtle distraction becomes a gross distraction, and the meditation object slips into the background. At first, your attention will alternate between the gross distraction and the meditation object. Yet, because the distraction is more compelling than the breath, your attention becomes increasingly focused on it. Eventually, attention stops returning to the meditation object altogether. Even without any attention, the breath may linger in peripheral awareness for a little while. But the longer the gross distraction occupies your attention, the more the breath fades, until you forget it entirely. Forgetting often happens gradually. But if the distracting thought or sensation is highly charged, attention can get captured quickly and intensely, and the meditation object disappears at once from consciousness. Still, whether it happens quickly or slowly, the result is the same. You forget about the breath, and you also forget what you were doing. Then, once attention tires of that distraction, it moves on to something else. Mind wandering begins. Overcoming forgetting. You overcome forgetting by catching distractions before they cause you. Continue using following and connecting in stages 4 and 5. so don't set your expectations too high right now. You may even find connecting isn't particularly useful at this stage. We describe it here, only because there are some who will benefit from using it sooner. Following and connecting in silence. In stage 2, I said it can be helpful to use mental self-talk when following the breath. By now you've noticed that a lot of the mental activity takes the form of inner dialogue. Like a split commentative discussion equation game, mental talk becomes a way to follow the movement of attention and gauge the quality of awareness. Yet you may have also noticed that self-talk can cause problems. It's slippery, like quicksilver, flowing from investigating the breath to some other associated topic, then on to another. Suddenly you've gone down the rabbit hole of mind wandering. Therefore, even though occasional self-talk is fine, it's best at this stage to start cutting back on verbal commentary and to appreciate the peaceful silence surrounding the breath. You'll discover you can still follow what's happening, and that you're able to think about the meditation object non-verbally. Cultivating introspective awareness through labeling and checking in. So far, you've worked on developing extrospective awareness, and you want to sustain that. Now it's time to start cultivating introspective awareness as well. With introspective awareness, you're aware of what's happening in your mind as you continue to focus attention closely on the breath. You'll train and strengthen your capacity for introspective awareness through the practices of labeling and checking in. Labeling. Up to now, you've relied on spontaneous introspective awareness, or what we call the aha moment, to relate your forgetting and mind wandering. When you positively reinforce these spontaneous realizations, awareness learns to catch mind wandering faster and faster, so that now your mind only wanders for a few seconds. However, your awareness probably isn't strong enough for you to recall what distraction was occupying your attention before your aha moment. You have enough conscious power to wake up, but not enough to know what was going on in your mind. It's like when someone suddenly asks you what you're thinking about, but you just can't remember. To strengthen introspective awareness, use labeling to practice identifying the distraction in the very moment you realize you're no longer on the breath. For example, if you catch yourself thinking about your next meal or something that happened yesterday, give the distraction a neutral label, such as thinking. Tightening up your focus, the less often you will forget the breath. Putting the practices together. Each practice by itself strengthens introspective awareness, but they also work together to overcome forgetting. The labeling of distractions trains awareness to know which distractions to watch out for in the future when you're checking in. You could say labeling teaches introspective awareness to recognize the faces of your abductors, those dangerous distractions that steal your attention and cause you to forget. When checking in, you can also use labeling. If you check in and notice that a distracting thought, memory, or emotion was about to take you away, you can give it a simple label and re-engage with the breath until the distraction fades. But remember, you aren't trying to eliminate distractions entirely from awareness. As long as they stay in the background, let them come, let them be, and let them go. If you practice diligently, by the time you reach stage 4, you'll have completely stable attention and be able to keep watch over the entire horizon of the mind with introspective awareness. Pain and discomfort. As we start sitting longer, pain and other unpleasant sensations, such as numbness, tingling, and itching, appear. Our bodies aren't used to staying still. When we're fairly stationary in daily life, we still move and fidget. Even when sleeping, we constantly change positions to stay comfortable. The good news is it gets easier to sit still over time. The better news is that eventually, you won't have any physical discomfort at all. In fact, sitting still becomes so deliciously pleasant that it takes an act of will to move. But getting accustomed to true stillness takes time and practice. Therefore, always make yourself as comfortable as possible and adjust your posture to minimize discomfort. When unpleasant sensations arise, ignore them as long as you can. Resist the urge to move for relief. When the discomfort becomes too much to ignore, turn your attention toward the pain and make it the focus of your attention. Remember, when training the mind, you always want to intentionally choose the focus of your intention. So, whenever a distraction grows too strong to ignore, whether it's pain in the body or the sound of a jackhammer outside the window, you purposely make it into your meditation object. Observe the unpleasant sensation without moving for as long as you can. If it disappears or decreases enough to be ignored, return to the sensations of the breath. If, instead, the urge to move becomes irresistible, decide in advance when you'll move, for example, at the end of the next out-breath, exactly what movement you'll make, for example, move your leg or raise your hand to scratch the itch, and then be very observant as you perform that movement. After you move, the discomfort often returns quickly or reappears elsewhere. When you see this keeps happening, you'll become less concerned with moving because you realize there's no point. It becomes easier to stay with the pain and investigate it longer. We'll discuss meditating with pain and discomfort more in stage 4, when they're even more distracting. For now, just remember that by meditating on these harmless sources of pain, we gain insight into the nature of desire and aversion by watching how resistance and impatience create suffering. As you progress, you will discover a profound truth. In life, as in meditation, physical pain is unavoidable, but suffering of every kind is entirely optional. Dullness and drowsiness. Once you start to have longer periods of stable attention, you will face the problem of drowsiness and falling asleep. Why does dullness arise right when our concentration starts to improve? The first reason is that when we meditate, we intentionally turn the mind inward, but we've been conditioned our entire life to associate turning inward with going to sleep. The second is that as we succeed in taming the mind and calming its normal state of relative agitation, the overall energy level drops. There is a famous Buddhist simile of training a young elephant by tethering it to a stake. At first, the elephant lunges in every direction, trying to escape. When it realizes it can't, it lies down and goes to sleep. In the same way, as we tether the mind to the meditation object, we restrain its natural tendency to seek stimulation, and it falls asleep. As with the elephant, the untrained mind needs stimulation to stay awake. Dullness in meditation comes in many different degrees, ranging from strong dullness, such as drowsiness, to subtler forms, like feeling a bit spaced out. Drowsiness often makes an appearance at this stage. As with distraction, dullness is another form of scattered attention. But while distraction scatters attention to other objects of awareness, dullness scatters attention to a void in which nothing is perceived at all. The dullness and drowsiness we are concerned with here are due specifically to meditation practice, and need to be clearly distinguished from dullness due Obviously, if you're fatigued by mental or physical stress, illness, or lack of sleep, you'll be sleepy during meditation. So regarding good night's rest is an important part of good practice. When you meditate also makes a difference. Most people get drowsy after eating or strenuous physical activity, and the early part of the afternoon or late evening can be sleepy times as well. If you're well rested, and you're taking all these other factors into account, but still find yourself feeling drowsy, you'll note dullness related to meditation. Working with drowsiness. In meditation, drowsiness usually leads to brief moments of sleep. Within a few seconds of falling asleep, posture and muscles relax, and your head nods so your body starts to calm. Then you wake up with a sudden jerk as muscle reflexes pull you up on, the so-called zen lurch. Of course, if you're lying down or sitting in a comfortable chair, you might sleep for a long time. This is why you shouldn't meditate in this position, unless arthritis or some other health condition absolutely requires it. If you just jerk awake, within a short time you'll probably feel dullness setting again, like a heavy cramp. When this happens, you have a great opportunity to investigate how dullness develops and turns into drowsiness. If you closely observe what happens, you'll notice that coming out drowsiness is distinctly unpleasant. You would probably prefer to stay there. However, by resisting the urge and returning to practice, you'll usually experience a comfortable state where you can still follow the path, though without the same intensity or vividness or clarity as before. This is called subtle dullness. It eventually leads to strong dullness, in which attention still comes to the path, but the focus is weak and diffuse, and the sensations vaguely perceived. The drowsiness that precedes falling asleep feels like trying to see through dense fog. The path often becomes distorted, transformed by dreamlike imagery, and nonsensical thoughts start drifting through the mind. Eventually you do fall asleep. Working with subtle dullness as it arises can be quite productive, but struggling against strong dullness that's already present doesn't work well. So if you're drowsy, or while you doze off during a session, you must first rouse the mind out of dullness. Then you can work with dullness as it starts to return. Here are a few antidotes, roughly in order of strength, from mild to strongest, for rousing the mind from dullness. Take 3 or 4 deep breaths, filling the lungs as much as possible, and hold for a moment. Then exhale as forcefully and completely as possible through tightly pressed lips. Tense all the muscles in your body until you begin to tremble slightly, then relax. Repeat several times. Meditate while standing up. Do walking meditation. Worst case scenario, get up, splash cold water on your face, then go back to practicing. These work because they stimulate you, not only physically, but mentally as well, by increasing the flow of external stimuli in your mind. In general, always do whatever is necessary to re-energize yourself back to a state of alert awareness. When drowsiness returns quite soon after you've roused yourself, it's called symptom, which feels like being caught in mental quicksand. Symptom is a sure sign that you didn't re-energize the mind enough. Keep using strong antidotes until the drowsiness doesn't return for at least several minutes. But try not to do more than necessary, or you'll create a state of agitation. Now that you've roused your mind, keep alert and energized by making sure your extrospective awareness doesn't collapse. Recall that dullness results from turning the mind too far inward and losing energy from lack of stimulation. If you find that focusing on the breath is causing extrospective awareness to fade, you can correct this by expanding awareness to include bodily sensations, sounds, and so forth, while not losing attention to the breath. However, you can also let the breath become secondary to a state of expanded, all-encompassing awareness for a while. When you feel ready again, bring your focus attention back to the sensations at the tip of the lungs. You're looking for balance between being too inward and too outward directed. Another way to keep the mind energized is through intention. Having a strong conscious intention to clearly perceive the breath sensation while also sustaining peripheral awareness will keep the mind energized. The intention should be set before the sensations actually appear. This keeps you attentive. But don't project too far ahead. For instance, set the intention to pause before the out-breath to observe the very beginning of the out-breath. At the beginning of the out-breath, set the intention to observe sensations near the middle, and at the middle, set the intention to discern the end of the out-breath. Do the same for the in-breath. This close-up investigation takes practice. However, it energizes the mind and keeps you engaged enough so you don't also lose sleep in the drowsiness. Remember, it's always best to recognize and correct for dullness before it gets too strong. Introspective attention and eventually introspective awareness are one way to dullness before you get drowsy and fall asleep. So each time you check in for gross distractions, look for dullness as well. Also, keep in mind that your intention isn't just to get rid of sleepiness, but to learn about the nature of dullness. Therefore, follow the breath, and when dullness arises, consider it an opportunity to learn and practice. In time, through effort and training, dullness will naturally disappear. Conclusion. You have mastered stage 3 when forgetting and mind wandering no longer occur, and the breath stays continually in conscious awareness. This is a whole new pattern of behavior for your mind. The mind still roams, but it's tethered to the meditation object, not again too far away. The unconscious mental processes that sustain attention never entirely let go of the meditation object. Because attention no longer shifts automatically to objects of desire and aversion, you can purposely hold your attention on an emotional neutral object like the breath for extended periods of time. The ability to continuously sustain attention on a meditation object is remarkable, so take satisfaction in your accomplishment. You can now do something that most people can't, something you may not thought you were even capable of. Congratulations, you have reached the first milestone achievement and the real beginning of skilled meditation. Third interlude. How mindfulness works. The practice of mindfulness leads to both psychological healing and profound spiritual insights. To understand how, we first need to look at the role of the mind in the formation of personality. Who we are today was shaped by our past. The imprints of past experiences exert powerful influence on our emotional reactions and behavior in the present. Usually, we are aware of their effect. A human how much of daily life actually consists of mindless, automatic behaviors driven by unconscious conditioning. Of course, these are intermingled with intentional actions. If an automatic response isn't immediately available, we have to consciously decide what to do or say. But even these conscious choices are strongly influenced by conditioned mental states, feelings, and what are sometimes called intuitions, deeply held views about people, ourselves, the world, moral values, and the very nature of reality. All this conditioning serves as a powerful but completely unconscious influence guiding conscious decision-making processes in unseen ways. Unconscious conditioning is like a collection of invisible programs. These programs are set in motion, often long ago, by conscious experiences. Our reactions to those experiences, our thoughts, emotions, speech, and actions may be appropriate at the time. The problem is they become programmed patterns, submerged in the unconscious, that don't change. They lie dormant until they're triggered by something in the present. When that happens, we often get so focused on the triggering event in our own emotions that these unconscious programs start taking in any new information about the current situation. That's why they don't change. The practice of mindfulness works because it provides new information to these programs. But how much reprogramming happens depends on our degree of mindfulness. In other words, mindfulness has different levels of application. At its most basic level, mindfulness is simple about modeling behavior. The magic of mindfulness, its power to transform you as a person, only starts working when we move beyond the first level. At the second level, by maintaining more powerful mindfulness for longer periods in daily life, we become less reactive and more intentionally present. The third level entails reprogramming the deep conditioning that has shaped our personality, and only occurs in meditation. The fourth level is the radical reconditioning of the innate tendencies that create all our suffering, and only occurs through insight experience. Level 1. Modeling behavior. Over and over, specific situations in daily life happen to trigger our programmed patterns of behavior. For example, if your partner or even a stranger says something that pushes one of your buttons, you may become angry or annoyed. Without mindfulness, we react emotionally instead of responding rationally and intentionally. Often, we just create more problems for ourselves. At the very least, we end up in a bad mood and become less effective than whatever we're doing. But if we can stay mindful, we'll also be calmer and not react as quickly or be so distracted by our own emotions. This allows us to be more attentive to our feelings and aware of the situation and the potential consequences of our actions, so we can mitigate our behavior in positive ways. Just being aware of our suffering has more to do with our emotional reactions and with what triggered them can help us let go of those negative emotions more easily. Mindfully acknowledging our emotions and taking responsibility for our reactions lets us recognize more actions, choose wiser responses, and take control of our behavior. Awareness in the present moment allows us to slow down and change our behavior, but doesn't make any permanent changes. The next time we're in a similar situation, we'll behave in the same automatic, reactive way. Unless, of course, we're mindful once again. Level 2. Becoming less reactive and more responsive. Everyone would like to make smarter choices. However, healthier responses to life situations are only one of the benefits of attention and awareness working together. The true magic of mindfulness is something completely different, producing extraordinary spiritual and psychological transformations. Lots of therapists now use mindfulness training to help treat all kinds of emotional and behavioral problems, such as stress, anger, phobias, compulsive behaviors, eating disorders, addiction, and depression. The magic of mindfulness allows these people to overcome the psychological